But if they are not in line, then it will lead to some unhappiness. Some
Yes.
things will happen. So we can just explore and see what is happening inside. So we'll just get to that about where the desires are coming from. But broadly, you can say that they can come from any of these three sources.
Right.
Arjun, can
Thank
you
you.
give an example for desire in three, that preconditioning, which comes from preconditioning, sensation, and natural understanding? Same
Natural,
desire, how the three can be.
yeah. So suppose we have the same desire of building a house, right? So that desire on its own doesn't come from either of any of these three, because building of a house for yourself can be for various reasons. So suppose your desire behind building the house, yeah, first we'll just before the question we'll just take this example and then we can take another question. Yeah, okay. So yeah, suppose the desire is to build the house, and we want to know where that is coming from. Then just just looking at the fact that we want to build a house is not coming from any of these three sources. But when we look deeper for the reason why we want to build the house, then we come to know where the desire is coming from. So suppose my reason for building the house is for protection and right utilization of the body, and you know living comfortably, having the right like utilizing the physical facilities in a way that is for nurturing and protecting the body and for nothing else, then our desire is based on our natural acceptance, because we want to keep the body in good shape, we want to keep the body healthy, and so that it can be used to perform the activities which the self is giving the body. So in that case, that desire is coming from natural acceptance.
Yes.
Even though it is of a physical facility, it's still coming from natural acceptance, because the reason for that building of that house is that you want to
To protect our body, no? We have to
protect the body and then use the body for the self, for performing
okay.
the activities of the self.
Okay.
So when we construct a house with this kind of mindset, then we'll not be, um, having any other ideas that we should build the biggest or it should look like this or like that. It will be just a very basic thing which we have for the sake of, um, the reason behind it will be only for protection and right utilization of the body. So
Okay.
that kind of house which you build with that mindset, that would be based on natural acceptance. But we'll take the same house example. That suppose I want to build a house which is, suppose I just come to a colony which is a very like uh, rich colony or something, and I want to build the house over there so that when I show this house to my friends and all that, then they will respect me more. Or just because I want to have a house in that colony because it feels that it will give me a kind of status or it will give me a kind of respect from outside. Then that respect from outside could be, I mean, that feeling might be coming from a preconditioning that if I
Precondition.
do this, then it will help me to get respect. Or if I do this, it will help me to get something like some feeling or something, some, or if I do this, it will lead to prosperity. I might have various preconditioning, right? So if I build a house on that basis, then it is on the basis of a precondition.
Precondition.
And on the third possibility is that I'll build this house so that I can derive maximum pleasure of the sensations. So suppose I build this house so that, um, my sense of, I feel like whatever my eyes are seeing, whatever my like I will eat good, like very tasty food in that place, or I will, um, you know, look at how I'm looking at things. I like the look of the house so much
House.
that I got totally absorbed in that look. I like the look so much. That's why I'm building this house. So many times with tourism, it might happen like that, right? One reason for many people going for tourism might be that they want to see those places which look nice.
Okay.
So, I mean, if we're focusing on the looks or the anything to do with the senses, we are over focusing on those things, then the desire is coming from sensation. It may not be looks. In the case of house, it may be looks or the feel or the touch or the smooth surface of the house, and it looks uh, very grand, or it looks very pleasing to the eyes. Those kind of things are all
For example,
sensation. Yeah,
if I see a house of my friend or which is very pleasant to my eyes, and I want to make same type of house, then that will be a sensation.
yeah.
Okay.
If you're trying to make your house similar to your friend's house because you like the look of it, or you like the way it is, the way
Okay.
when you touch the surfaces, it feels very smooth and all that. If that is the basis, if that is the primary basis, then it becomes that you're doing it for sensation, because you want to have that sensation again and again. So even in the case of food, how we discussed last time, that if you eat something which is tasty and then you have a gap, then again you want that sensation. So then again you try to eat that food, or that way. So in the same way,
Okay.
if it's the house also, that you want to live in a house where whenever you look at the house, you always feel good that your house is very good, your house is looking very good. So that would be a case where you're doing it for the sake of sensation.
Sensation.
So practically, when you see, it might be a mix of all these three. But what we're saying is, look at what is the primary motive for doing it. Like when you're building a house for the right utilization of the body also, you can still make it look good, right? So
Yeah.
so that can also be there. But what is the primary objective if we see? Like, of course, even if it is a house built with that sensation kind of mindset, even then our primary objective is to live in that house, otherwise we wouldn't build it, right? So
Yeah.
even then the primary thing is to live there. But how much are we focusing on the sensation? That is what determines what kind of house we'll make also, right? Like if we focus a little bit on it, then we'll make a house which looks decent to us, but then we won't overspend or overdo something which would be not required for our living, but required only for our pleasing sensation, favorable sensation. And same with preconditioning, that we are building a house, but in the colony, if all the neighbors have four-story house and we need only one story because we are only two people, then we'll feel that if we are feeling that, all the other people are building four-story. So if we build two-story, then people will think that, we are a poor family or something. So then we should also build four-story. So that is an example of a preconditioning, which is
Reconditioning.
that if we build a bigger house, then we will be treated equal to the other. Otherwise, we'll be treated less than the other. So
So
that is a
if the
preconditioning.
desires are by preconditioning and a sensation, then it is not through the right understanding. So then we will not be happy, no? That is uh, the
Yeah,
thing.
I mean, then what happens is
Conflicts
that,
comes, no?
yeah, what happens is that we are expecting happiness to come from that. Like when we
Okay.
also build four-story house, then we are expecting that we'll also get the same respect and the same whatever things that
And
we are
we'll get
expecting.
happiness from that. But
But
it is
then,
only
but then when that doesn't come, then it feels that we are getting unhappiness because
okay.
we are not able to get that. It's a misconception, right? Like it's a
Yeah.
misconception that if we have more money, then it will lead to happiness.
Okay.
So of course you require money, of course you require house and all that. But if you're expecting the happiness to come out of that, then you might be having that misconception that it may not lead to that. And when you find out that it may not lead to that, then that makes you unhappy because you've spent so much of your time and effort to try to collect that money or to do that thing. But then finally, when you see that it is not working, then that leads to unhappiness.
Yes. Okay.
So,
Okay.
what we're saying here is that you can analyze your desires and see for each desire that you have, which source is it coming from? Is it coming from preconditioning? Is it coming from sensation? Or
Sensation.
is it coming from natural acceptance?
So we,
So
we
when you
can
do
write
this,
all our desires and then see it. Like
yeah.
we need to write,
So if
no,
you do this exercise, right? No, you don't have to write now, but you can
uh,
write after the session also.
session. Okay.
This is an exercise which really helps a lot to clarify all the things happening in our imagination.
Mhm.
Because right now, because of having this mix of desire, thought, and expectation inside us, because of that mix not being clarified, it's leading to a lot of repetitive thoughts also, and a lot of expectations also, and lots of desires also, which we don't want, but we still have inside us. So it's leading to a lot of problems inside us also, and it's leading to like not being productive also, because we are kind of going in loops, going round and round kind of. So if we really analyze what our desires are, like make a list of all our desires that we can feel right now that are there inside us, then you can mark each one of them as which one is coming from which source. And that will give an idea about which ones you should focus more on, and which ones you can try to explore and see whether you really want them, or else you don't want to keep them further. So this is just an exercise which really helps a lot to
Okay.
clarity, to get
Uh,
clarity on the content of the
when I was
imagination.
discussing this preconditioning in the class, no, I gave the example. Some students, even though they're very poor, they buy very expensive bikes. So that is a preconditioning, no, that they have a notion if they come in very expensive bike, they get a respect and those things. But one of the student asked me, they have desire, for example, mobile, like when the, I don't know when the next mobile comes, they have a craving to buy the next one. So that is because of the preconditioning or sensation.
It depends on them actually, because we can't answer that until we find out why they want to buy that mobile. Like,
Okay.
for example, if he wants to buy that mobile because others are using it and he doesn't have it, right?
Okay. No,
And
he
if
already has a mobile, but he the versions comes, no, next.
yeah. So
So then,
maybe if his friends have that other mobile, the new mobile, and he
okay.
doesn't have it,
Hmm.
then he can either feel that he also wants it because his friends have it, and if he also gets it, then he will get the same respect and he will be like treated as a
So
friend
that is again a
whom he has to meet.
preconditioning, no? That is
So
a.
that is a preconditioning. But on the
Mm,
other hand, if he wants it regardless of whether his friends have it or not,
mm.
then it could be because of sensation also, because he wants to experience the same sensation that others may be experiencing, the same features and all he wants to use, and um, because of that he wants to buy it. So that could be because of sensation. So it could be either. It depends on
Okay.
what his reason for buying it is.
Okay. Then when the correct right it will come if you have to buy a mobile.
Then you see what is the purpose of the mobile. If it is helping in the right utilization of the body, if you're using it as an instrument, like how the body is an instrument of the self, right? In the same way, if you are using all these gadgets and all for helping the body to, facilitate the self, sorry, if you're using these
Help.
gadgets for the
Okay.
self to facilitate that right understanding, if you're using it as a tool, like to do that
Okay.
for any kind of communication, or you're using those features so that you can use the self, like the self can get this tool so that
Mm-mm.
they
To
can,
develop your skills and all, like.
yeah,
Oh,
to develop your skills so that you can use it for the right, basically right utilization is
position.
what we're saying.
Mm-hmm.
If you're
For
doing
example.
if you're getting any gadget for the right utilization of the body, then it is because of natural acceptance. Like suppose you buy a car also to go from one place to another place. You're using it for your convenience, but then you're also using it because you have to get to that place every day, and then you feel that, to get from here to there every day, I want to use a car, so I'll use a car. That is also by natural acceptance that,
Acceptance.
yeah, you want to rightly utilize your body and your time
Body.
and all your efforts
That's what.
for understanding and for your growth basically of the self. So when you're doing it for that, then your growth can become faster. Like if you use some gadget, like we are using the internet to communicate, so we're able to communicate with more people more efficiently. So when we're using gadgets to for this kind of a purpose, then it is naturally acceptable. But if you're using gadgets to look more like in line with the others, then it is that we feel that if we have this only, then we will be accepted by the others in the friend circle or in the society or whatever maybe. So if you're trying to just do it for the sake of that getting accepted, then we'll find that we may not get accepted also, and we may get accepted also
Also.
in that circle. But regardless of that, we have this preconditioning, this strong preconditioning that if we have this, only then we can be happy. If we don't have this, then we'll be unhappy. And then once we get it also, we can't really say whether that has made us happy. And even if it has for a few moments, it's definitely not going to be continuous.
Continuous.
So, like this, we can analyze all our desires, whether it be for getting a mobile phone or a car or anything which is non physical, also. Like if we have a desire for a relationship, also, then we can explore whether we want to have that relationship for the sake of pleasurable sensation from the others, or whether we want to have it because of preconditioning that everybody is getting married at this age, so we should also get married at this age, or everybody has a boyfriend or girlfriend in high school, so we should also do that.
That is a preconditioning. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that could be a preconditioning, or
Condition.
that could be a sensation also, that we want to
Okay.
experience things
Okay.
which adults are experiencing, and why
Experiencing.
wait till getting married? We want to
Married.
experience everything beforehand. So we want to have that sensation. That could be the reason, or it could be that since everyone else has, then we also want, so that could be from preconditioning. Or if we want it for the sake of multiplying that right understanding and those things, then it could be from natural acceptance. So it can be from any source basically. If we look at the desire without analyzing where it's coming from, then we don't know until we ask the question that why we want that desire. So a desire as such, like suppose, like you were saying, that somebody who is very poor is also trying to get a bike which is expensive. So if that person is doing it because he feels that it's a more efficient way to travel than his cycle, and he can save time and therefore spend that time for doing something meaningful, then that could be from natural acceptance also. But
But for that, he
if
can buy
we,
a normal bike. No, that would be sufficient. No.
yeah. So it depends on him what his reasoning may be.
Okay.
Like even if somebody buys a normal car also, somebody else who has a bike might think that it is an unnecessary expense. He could have bought a bike, why did he buy a car?
Car. Okay.
So like that, how you're saying normal bike, like that somebody else might say that instead of that you can use a scooty also, then why even buy a bike? Like that,
Bike. Okay.
so he might have his own reasoning, and
He
he might
is
have his
saying.
own
So
assumption
might be
about.
he can be right under like his he it not it might not be precondition also. No, it might be the right
Yeah,
understanding
so it
also.
could be either, it could be any of the three.
Three. Okay.
But largely, if we look at our desires, then we find that most of them are coming from preconditioning and sensation. If we
Shins.
really analyze, if we do truthfully, like without trying to think that uh, you know that we are perfect. If we do it truthfully, then we see that a majority of our desires are coming from either preconditioning or
Conditioning or
sensation.
sensation. Okay.
We might have many preconditionings about happiness also, right? That if we do this, then we'll be happy. So that kind of preconditioning also may be there. That if I teach well and the students are respecting me, then that will make me happy. And that might happen also for some time. But then continuous happiness cannot really come from anywhere from outside. That is one thing which we discussed before, right? That continuous happiness can only come from inside by understanding and living in harmony. And everything from outside, even whether it is, if it is physical or non-physical, even if it is a feeling from others, then that also cannot be continuous. So like this, we can just analyze,
Just
we can
yeah.
see, we can see where each thing is coming from, and we can do this exercise truthfully without, um, trying to make ourselves look good and
Good.
say that
Okay.
all our desires are coming from natural acceptance.
Acceptance. Yeah. Yeah.
Because if we do that, we'll just be fooling ourselves, right? That
Yeah.
doesn't really help, because we don't have to show this to anyone. This is just for our own understanding.
Understanding. Thank you, Arjun.
Yeah, thank you. If there's any other question on this, one hand was raised. Again, you can raise now, because in between the question, if we raise, it's a little bit hard to switch. One hand is raised, I think. Um, Dr. Shilpa,
Yes, sir. Hello, sir. Good evening, sir.
good
Uh,
evening.
Sir, I just want to know that how can we relate the two terms, desire and requirement? Because most of the time we are seeing that desires often lead to unhappiness or dissatisfaction, but requirements often leads to happiness. So how can we relate the two terms? Is there uh, any logic like uh, so that we can uh, just say
Yeah, so basically, that's a good question. So basically, when we look at our desires
yeah,
and we see that some are coming from here, some are coming from there,
yeah.
then um, then we automatically get the answer on which ones will lead to our happiness and which ones will
So
not.
because most of the time we are observing that desires often come when we see others doing something,
So
but
those desires are coming from preconditioning.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So that's what
and
I'm saying, right? That
yeah,
if you analyze that, then you
yeah,
see which desires are coming from preconditioning,
yes, sir.
and then you see whether you want to go to the end point of that desire and take action, or else you want to drop that desire.
Okay. And what about requirements? Suppose we have a requirement for something, like you were giving the example of owning the house and all that. So uh, that how will we will say this thing is coming out of desire or requirement? Like
Requirement, if you are saying also, that is also a desire.
yeah, okay.
So
Both the terms are yeah,
any requirement is also a desire. Like suppose you have a requirement for, like, requirement is like, mostly I think what you're trying to say is that if it's a requirement, it's a necessary thing, and if it's a
yeah.
not so necessary thing, something that we want but we don't need, then
Yeah,
you can say it's a
it's a
desire. But
desire.
basically all of them are desires. Even our requirements
Okay, okay.
are also desires.
Okay, both the terms are say like uh, same.
Yeah,
Rather,
you
we
can
can.
say requirement is a subset of desire.
Okay, okay, that's what I wanted to know, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank
Yeah, thank you. So when you're looking at your what you feel that you require,
you. Yeah,
then that changes based on the way you look at that thing. Like if you're looking at a house with the
yeah,
view of getting respect, then you will build a much bigger house, much grand looking house than a house which you build for the sake of just living comfortably without any issues. So
yes,
depending on that, that will decide what kind of house you build. So um, for one person, that requirement may be different for what they see, what they feel is comfortable for them, and for another person, that basic comfort level might mean something else. Like for somebody who is very poor, maybe that basic comfort level might be just having a roof on top of the head. And maybe for somebody who is very rich, maybe a 4-story house or a 10-story house might be a basic
Yeah.
requirement.
Okay, sir.
So your basic requirement also changes based on your
Desire.
preconditioning and sensation and all that, right?
So it depends on preconditioning or on desire, sir.
No, desire is a subset of all this. What we're saying, requirement, what you're saying, right? That is also something which your requirement depends on all these things. Your requirement, like
Yeah.
what I'm saying, right? Why different people have different requirement. Like
Yes.
somebody might say that for me, going to the school and coming back just requires um, a small bicycle. That would be enough for me. Somebody else might say that I require a bike. That is the most basic thing which I need. Somebody else might say the most basic thing I need is a car.
Yeah.
Somebody else might say the most basic thing is I need is a some 4-wheel drive car or something, some different requirement. So
Yeah.
all these requirements look very different, and they need different amounts of money and all to fulfill. So
Yeah.
why are they different? Why does one person feel that
Hmm.
his basic need is of a bicycle and another person feels basic need is of a
Yeah.
4-wheel drive car?
Yeah.
So that is
So, sir,
because
yeah.
based on their preconditioning and sensation, they decide what is the requirement.
Okay. Okay,
And
sir.
those requirements are also desires, which they have
All the
made inside.
requirements, actually, all the requirements are desires.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, sir.
Like, see, even food and water and all that is a desire.
Yeah.
And there are lots of desires which we need for our basic survival also.
Yeah.
Like, we need food and water. These are
Yeah.
basic requirements which we have, which are also basic desires. And those desires are coming from natural acceptance because we
Yeah.
need to keep the body healthy.
Yes.
So, if our basic requirement of food and water, when we choose what kind of food we want to eat, then
Yeah.
if we are choosing on the basis of nourishing the body so that we can keep it healthy and active, then it is on the basis of natural acceptance. If it is
Sir,
mostly to get good taste, then it is on the
Yes.
basis of sensation. If it is that we want to have this food because everybody else is having it, and this makes us feel special having this kind of food or going to this kind of restaurant with this kind of ambience and all that, then it is on the
Yeah.
basis of preconditioning. So even a
Okay.
basic thing like food and water also, you can see how the difference is when somebody takes a decision on what to eat and what water to drink also, based on whether it's coming from preconditioning, sensation, or natural acceptance. So even even the most basic things that we need, like food and water also, we can
Yeah.
see how there is possibility of so much difference based on where we are getting that desire from.
Yeah. Yes.
So
So,
now I hope
like,
it is clearer, right? Or
sir,
is still any doubt
sir,
on
sir,
no,
sir,
sir,
sir, sir, just a
it's,
minute, sir.
thank you,
that?
sir.
Sir,
Yeah,
Thank
thank you.
Arjun ji, namaste.
Namaste.
Sir, sir, actually, can we say that as you told that the desire comes maybe with precondition and sensation, but just can you say that it is the content of imagination? So no, the imagination may be with precondition or sensation and or natural acceptance. And if the it is guided by natural acceptance, that is we call the desire, because just say desire or feelings are the same things.
Yeah, we
Uh,
already talked about this. I already
sir,
we
sir,
already
just
cleared this now
as
that
you
we have.
told na, sir, desire comes from preconditioning and sensation.
No, no,
So
I
it
said desire can come from any of these three sources. It can either come from preconditioning, or it can come from sensation, or it can come from natural acceptance. It can come
sir,
from any of
just
these three.
we can say that can we say that the imagination comes from preconditioning, sensation, and natural acts, because it is the desire, thought, and expectation are called the imagination. So it will be better if you say that imagination may be guided by precondition, sensation, and natural acceptance.
Yeah, it's the same thing, because even if we see our desires
Because
also.
it is confusing, sir. Because what is told, sir, just I remember. So when the expectation is that is something, the happiness comes from outside. So that is that is called expectation. So we are happy from outside and or want to be happy out of it. So like say something जो बाहर से खुशी आता है तो इसको say I expect that people behave properly, then I will be happy. So this is the expectation. This is not desire. So just I was with the desire comes from instead of that we just it may be imagination. It will be right, sir?
I think, I think the issue is that, like, you have mixed up the terms a little bit, and that is leading to some confusion.
Okay, sir.
So, what we are saying is that our content of imagination is these three things: desire,
Yes.
thought, and expectation. And when we are talking about expectation, it's about fulfilling the desire. So, it's not coming from inside or outside, it depends on the desire. So, if
Uh,
our desire is for, say,
Arjun,
a
you
car,
gave an example, no, that house, when you have to construct, what it will be our thoughts, what will be, that will make easy, I think. You had
yeah,
explained earlier, but that again, if you tell, it will be helpful for him.
yeah.
It is
So
expectation is not from
we
outside. It
already
is.
said it two, three
Uh,
times. So I think if you just watch the video after it is over, that would be better,
okay,
because
okay,
we
okay.
already went
But
through it a couple of times. So I think,
because
one thing which you can
the
see.
basic desire of or the goal, we can say the basic desire or goal of each human being is that to bring happiness. So that is the happiness within, and or the desire in the self. So that is the basic the concept from the beginning. Just say. Um, so this is something confusing. So desire to be happy, desire with right understanding, the desire with right feeling. That is guided by this. So that's why it is confusing, sir. Okay, sir.
Okay, so our desire is for continuous happiness and prosperity,
Yes.
but
Then how my
because,
desire will be to bring make a good or car or so if it is right, it is as you told that it is right basing on the need or right understanding, then it's okay, right, sir?
yeah, so our basic desire is for continuous happiness and prosperity. And then when we look at what we feel will make us happy and prosperous, then we realize that some of the things which we feel will make us happy and prosperous, some of those desires may come from preconditioning, some may come from sensation, and some may come from natural acceptance. So it's a mix of all these three desires which we have. And
Okay.
our root desire is the same, of being happy continuously and being prosperous. But because our assumptions are different, because our preconditioning is different, because of that, that overshadows the natural acceptance in different ways for different people. So, what happens is that we have a mix of all kinds of desires, and then we want to just clarify and, like, make a list of these desires and see which one is coming from where. And then that will help us to align our thoughts and expectations with those desires which we want to keep. And then we can drop desires which we don't want to keep. So, this is in a simple
Okay.
way looking at it.
Right.
And all this is called imagination. All this together is called imagination, because this is the content of whatever is happening inside. So this is what we are calling as imagination, a combination of these three things which keep going on continuously.
ठीक है.
Sir,
So yeah,
Arjun, can I tell fast on this that house? Sir, if I don't have a house, so I want to construct a house. That is a desire. So the thought process is how to construct that type of house. So that is my thought process. Expectation is after the construction of house, I will have a comfortable stay. I will be able to stay comfortably. So that desire is from the self or a natural acceptance. So these three things will be there. That is desire, thought, and expectation. Sir, did you get
yeah.
my point?
So expectation. Yeah. So what your doubt was also about expectation, whether
Yeah,
it is
he's
from
telling
outside.
expectation is from outside, but if a desire that is naturally accepted also has an expectation. That's what.
Right. Yes, yes. Yeah, so every desire will have some thoughts coming, like we'll have some thoughts which are coming from that desire, and based on those thoughts we'll have some expectation, right? So that these three things are in line. Like first you get a desire, then based on that desire you get some thoughts, based on those thoughts you have some expectations, and then on the basis of all this imagination, then you may take some action or you may not take some action. So that is again a choice which is after this, but all this happens before your action. So if our desires are coming from only mostly preconditioning and sensation, then it leads to us being enslaved by those preconditionings and those sensations. What that means is that if we have a sensation for a favorable taste or a favorable feeling, or you know, something favorable sight or something like that, then we want to get that sensation again and again, and we become enslaved to that sensation, like how it mentioned with food, that um, with tasty food it happens that many times it may happen that you get the taste, you like the taste, and then you want that taste again. So when you don't have that taste, you feel unhappy that you're not getting that taste, and then you're always craving for that taste, and then you try to get that taste again. So then um, the self again instructs the body to go after that taste again, and again it gets that taste, again it feels good. So this is a never ending cycle where, like, it's like you can never have enough, because it's something where um, you're enslaved to that sensation. If you don't get that sensation, you become unhappy, and if you get that sensation, you become happy for a few moments, and then again it fades away. So this is the kind of enslavement which happens with any sensation, whether it be house also. If you're building that house for the sensation purpose, then you always want to walk on that floor and have the same um like touch the walls and feel good about that house. Then you're kind of absorbed into that sensation, and that leads to that kind of same kind of enslavement where you feel comfortable in your house, but then you don't feel comfortable anywhere else because you're enslaved with that sensation. With house it is unlikely to happen actually like that, but with food it is very easy to visualize that, and with any physical relation also it's very easy to visualize that. So for different sensations it may be different the way that you get enslaved, but basically any sensation causes a kind of enslavement or a kind of lack of freedom, where you're not free to choose because you're feeling like the sensation is dominating your choice. So all this is possible only when you're not aware and you're not able to take the decision properly from the self. So this is what happens with sensation. And with preconditioning, the kind of enslavement is that it always depends on the other. So there's always a comparison. And with that comparison, you're always making choices based on the outside or based on something else. So that leads to enslavement because whatever the outside is will dictate what you do. So when somebody builds a bigger house, then you will feel that you also have pressure to build one more floor because only then you will be having the same height as the neighbor. Or when somebody else gets a promotion in your company, then you'll feel that you should also get a promotion so that you are also at the same level. So all these are kind of enslavements which depend on the other. So preconditioning leads to a kind of lack of freedom which depends on the other. And the third source of desire, which is the self verification on the basis of natural acceptance, that is a state where you're completely free, because regardless of what the other person does or doesn't do, you will still have the feeling that you are comfortable within, and you're in a state of freedom where you have the choice to choose and you don't have any pressure to decide. Like in preconditioning, you have the pressure of the other person. In natural acceptance, there's no pressure of any other person because you're deciding on the basis of your own right. You're not deciding on the basis of any other person. So that gives a kind of freedom which none of the other sources can give. So, and it gives freedom, and also, um, it is sustainable because it is something which is permanent. It is not something which, like when you see preconditioning, it depends on the other. So the other might keep changing. The other's opinions might keep changing. The other's, taste might keep changing. But when we see on the basis of natural acceptance, that is something which is universal and unchanging. So all the desires coming from here will eventually lead to happiness, whereas the desires coming from the other two sources will eventually lead to unhappiness. So this is what we can see. So as an exercise, what you can do is you can make a list of all your desires and see which desire is coming from which source. So that will give you a good picture about um, what is happening inside your imagination, and then that will also help you to make your imagination more productive and more in line with your natural acceptance over time. And then you can like analyze these desires which are coming from preconditioning and sensation, and see whether you want to continue those desires or you want to drop those desires, even though it may not be possible for you to do it overnight, like dropping the desire, because a desire can be sometimes very hard to drop. But at least you become aware of the fact that you have these desires and these desires may not lead to your continuous happiness. So it becomes a little bit more clear, it becomes part of your awareness. So that itself will give you a lot of comfort. And then dropping them you can think about later, but first you can just be aware of what is happening, because being aware of what is happening is the first step to making some improvement. So this is what we wanted to discuss today. One final question we can take. There's a question or a comment. After that, we'll close.
Hanji, good evening, Arjun.
Good evening.
Dr. Pramod Goel here. Actually, I just want to ask, like, I can understand, see, my son, he is 16-year-old, and he is asking me to buy a new car because our old car is now 16-year-old, but that car is working very well. And I actually don't drive long drive, and in 16 year, it has just like crossed only 1 lakh kilometer. So you can imagine like how much I just go from my house to our hospital, that is only 12 kilometer, and otherwise long drive. So my car is working very fine. So what was my requirement? My requirement, like uh, uh, we say like better जो मेरी body की proper utilization के लिए what I need, that is being fulfilled. Okay, so my natural acceptance says no. And I can understand my son, he's 16-year-old and he is still not able to drive because he's just 16. He can't drive as per Motor Vehicle Act. His driving license is not for car. But still he is pressurizing me that I should buy a new car. Definitely it is because of his preconditioning and sensation. But now how should I convince him? Actually, he is listening also. I have not, he's also sitting here. I have told him to sit and listen. Like I definitely I know because it's because of his, because whatever our requirement, that is being fulfilled because I already have the car. It's being running very well, but just it is just 16-year-old. That's why they want new car. Like how should I convince them? Like it's because of their preconditioning and sensation. How should I, or I should get for their demand and whatever thing. And I know if the new car will come, it will not give them happiness for a long time. Again, then some new demand will come. That I'm sure that already you have explained. Now, that same thing will happen. I know the same circle will continue. But now at present, how should I convince them? This is my question.
Yeah. So first thing is, when you're looking at this approach that the son is 16 years old, how do I convince? This approach leads to a little bit of friction between you and your son, because then you start looking as two conflicting kind of people. So rather than that, instead of trying to convince, you can try to kind of bring about these points without trying to convince, so that the other person has enough space to take a decision. In this case anyway, it is your decision, because he's not going to take the final decision for this. But even then, we can try to bring about all the facts, and then try to explain these things, and then see what he would say on his own, rather than telling him to choose this way or that way. It can be trying to give options and then see what the result comes. Like, whenever we try to tell someone something, then nobody likes to hear it if we are dominating in a way where we are saying that I want you to do this, or I want you to listen here because somebody is saying something, I want you to listen to this class. So that will automatically give a kind of opposition where the other person starts feeling that, okay, I'll do it because you're saying, but otherwise I have no interest. So with that kind of a feeling, if somebody attends the class also, then they may not be concentrating, or they may not feel that it is relevant for them, because they are, in their mind they have the opposition that this thing may not be useful, I'm just attending because my father wants me to attend, but otherwise there's no use of this. So all these kind of thoughts will start coming up, and this doesn't help to make the relationship better also, and it doesn't help to um, demonstrate the point also which we want to say. So what I would suggest is, like, the first thing what you could do is to start living according to this model, such that your son starts seeing the change which is happening in your living also. Not only the thoughts, not only the things which you are saying to him, but also in the action, in the living. So once it happens in the living, then when you start explaining also, then there is a kind of trust which is built, and with that trust there is more acceptance to explore also. So it's a slow process, and it may take time, because we are all in some or the other way messed up, right? None of us is in that perfect place where we have the complete right understanding. We are all on the same journey. So when we see this, then, like, it can be slowly figured out. But there's no easy way to do it other than to explain these things. But I mean, like, it's just something which can take some time. And even a 16-year-old or 10-year-old, or whatever number of years, now we can also be aware of the fact that they are exposed to so much of media, right? So much of online media and all that, where a lot of people are trying to portray the people as the rich people, or the more affluent people are more happy. They're trying to give these kind of messages through advertisements, and not only advertisements, movies and music videos and all that, right? So all that is being driven into him also, maybe more than what is being driven into the older people, because most of the content is being made for teenagers and people who are in their 20s, 30s. So what I'm saying is that, imagine the situation where there's so much of content driven into somebody, where they're giving the same perspective, saying that if you are rich you'll be happy. Imagine from that point of view, that if you're in his shoes, then you will also think the same way, because that point has become so strong, that assumption has become so strong, that you feel that that assumption is true. So then you can't break such a strong assumption so easily. So
Okay.
it has to come from a regular kind of sessions where you have this kind of discussion also, and where you see this happening in your living also. You can experiment with smaller things, like experiment with the restaurant. If you want to experiment, do it practically also, like how you're saying for the car. If you don't want to experiment with car, then it is okay, because you don't want to spend so much just to try to help him to understand. So you can do it with a smaller thing, do it with the restaurant, and try to go through all the steps, try to go through and show what happens in the sensation. Like you can just have this exercise that you both can go for dinner, and then ask him before the dinner, during the dinner, and after the dinner what is going on. And you'll notice that before the dinner there's a kind of excitement to go, happy feeling that you want to go for dinner, excitement is there. During the dinner there's the pleasurable sensation of the taste, and then after the dinner, for some time you feel good about having gone for that dinner, but then very soon it becomes that you lack that taste, so you want something else. So either you get something else, or else you wait for that to happen again. So during that gap, then you can ask him what is happening. So then he'll probably say that there's a craving to do this again, or to get some other sensation like this which feels good. So then experiment with things like this, and then through inference then he may understand also. But leave the understanding part to him, don't try to convince. Because if you're trying to convince, then it becomes very there becomes a feeling of opposition also, because it becomes like domination kind of feeling also, and opposition. So that weakens the relationship.
Yes, okay, thank you.
So do some experiments with other things, not with car. If you don't want to do with car, it's okay, because car is more expensive. But
Yes.
do some experiments with maybe food, or with anything else which you can think of, some small gift or something.
Okay,
See
thank you.
how it works, and keep trying to explore this, and you can help him to understand rather than trying to convince. That is the main thing. Treat him as a friend, because after he's 16 or 17, you can't be the boss, because if you are the boss, then eventually once he starts earning and all that, then he will not have the same relation also with you, right? We don't want to spoil any relation, we want to be like friends. So that way you can try to help him to understand, and then you both are going in the same journey of understanding. Same happens in our family also, that we are trying to all make progress on this path without trying to dominate each other, or without trying to convince each other, just trying to help each other to grow. That's it, without trying to convince.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll close now. It's already a little bit late, and yeah, it's a good discussion.
Okay, friends, we will meet again for a follow-up session on Friday, and for UHV follow-up session on next Wednesday. Till then, stay home, stay safe. Good night. Namaste.